Howdy again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and today with a rather senseless video, and you can turn it off if you see no need to watch it, but I'm going to talk about squares and the accuracy of combination squares, squares that you use around your shop, in your machine shop, and you might find this interesting, you might not. Now, this is not a metrology lab. I do not have the equipment or ability to do that accurate of calibration, and this isn't a calibration at all. It's a fun video, and I'm going to start out by showing you a cheap square, and I'm going to compare that to Brown & Sharpe and Starrett and Taft Pierce. So you may disagree with my methodology, but there may be some validity in it. So let's get started. Now let me start by telling you a short story. You may have seen me in a recent auction video where I bought this combination square. Now I know it's inferior, it's made in China, I was the only bidder. In fact, when it came up for bid, there was a long lag and nobody would bid on it, and finally I thought, you know, it's worth $1 just to laugh about, so I'm going to bid on it. I want to get this auction moving because the auctioneer was wasting so much time. So I bid $1 and I got it. That means that there were 199 men that did not want it. Why didn't they want it? Well, of course it's made in China. It's unbranded. It looks cheap. But, you know, it certainly would be good enough for a carpenter, but the laughable thing, the mockable thing, and the only thing it says on it is made in China, and it's graduated in imperial on the top and metric on the bottom. And what about the back? Nothing on the back, because they could save 10 cents by not doing that. So I don't know how much this cost. Maybe it was sold at Harbor Freight or someplace like that. I really don't know. But it probably only cost them, what, $2, $3, $4 to manufacture this. Matter of fact, the box probably cost more than the instrument. It appears that the thing has never been used. It does not have a hardened head. I prefer squares with hardened heads, and I have over here 3 of my favorite squares, a Brown & Sharpe, a Starrett, and the blue one here, which I bought for $1 at a garage sale, is Products Engineering, and you know, their tools made up in Minneapolis are quite good, so I do like this, even though it is not what you might consider a major brand, but they really are good tools. I did a bit of research on this, and did you know that Starrett, and I suppose the other catalogs, do not really consider their combination squares to be precision squares? Well, why do I say that? All right, let me turn to the page. I read through these several pages in the Starrett book where they're talking about their squares, and nowhere do they give any kind of accuracy indication, that is, how accurate it is within a half a degree or within 10 minutes or what. It just isn't mentioned, other than we know that these are darn good squares. And they sell pages of them in various setups here, with or without the center head, with or without the protractor, and so on. Once we get past the several pages on combination squares, there's a page or two on their master precision squares, and that's where the word precision comes into use here with Starrett. And that is where they talk about the squareness accuracy, that it is within 1/10,000th for every 6 inches. And that is very accurate. You may be surprised to know that I really own only one precision square, and that is this little 4-inch Mitutoyo combination square. I don't believe it's ever been used because I haven't used it myself, but some of the precision squares have a knife edge, and that is useful, I believe, because what I'm going to do here sometimes is, since the combination square does not have the knife edge, I'm going to turn it so that I'm using the corner of the square. But what I think I'm going to use here as a master is this Taft Pierce, and you've seen this before. I bought this at the Great Westclox auction, and this is a circular square. However, it is only, the problem here, and it's still got packing grease on it, it's only, what, 4.5 inches high. It could be used with riser blocks, but of course I do not have the riser block, and I'm not sure if some of you people have heard of Taft Pierce, but they were super high quality, super precision tools, and I do have some of their parallels and other tools in my possession. But this one came from Westclox, and it would have been used probably during the war in a little oak pirate's chest. Itself a thing of beauty. I also own this Taft Pierce, made in 1918, from Westclox as well, but I wouldn't consider that quite as precision. Let me show you one other thing. This is also a Taft Pierce product, and it's 6 inches high. I'm not going to use it, but it would be precision. And the reason I'm not going to use it is it still has some of the original packing on it from whenever it was made, probably during the war, and I don't mean the Gulf War, to prevent corrosion, but it doesn't clean up very well. I don't know what I need to do. I'll put it, I know what I'll do. I'll put it on the belt sander, Mr. Peterson. I also have a brand new STARRETT square head, never been out of the box, and I believe that I will install it on this square, and that's what I'll be using, although I do not believe there's anything wrong with this one. And remember that STARRETT and probably other companies sold these square heads two ways. They sold it as hardened and just as rough cast. And at school I bought the cheaper ones, and the kids would drop them off the table and the corners would break off. But I didn't have the heart to give them one of these. Note that I have a piece of white paper in the background so that I can see the light. And I think I'll start out by using the STARRETT brand new head along with the cheap Chinese one. And I did examine the edges of both blades to make sure there were no nicks from being dropped or anything like that. If there was any nicks, and you could feel them, of course, a hone could be used, but I'm very hesitant to put any kind of abrasives on here. So now, finally, done talking. Everything's been cleaned. This is cleaned with Windex, and the bottom of the squares wiped off. And I'll bring them up close together. I know you're not going to be able to see this. So let me experiment here to see what shows up and what doesn't. And I think I would like to cock them like that, present the corners to one another. I turned off the light, the house lights that is, and I'm running a flashlight up the back, and you can see that there are some gaps, and it is touching pretty much at the top and the bottom, so there may be a slight inaccuracy in one or the other blades. In other words, the blade isn't perfectly ground straight. Don't know for sure. Now this is real surprising to me. This is the blue one, the Products Engineering, and the STARRETT. I've taken the Chinese one out of the equation, and I've got the two of them butted up, but they aren't even close. They are touching at the top, and the gap gets wider and wider as you go to the bottom. That's really surprising to me. So which is it now? See, this is confusing, since we do not have a master item to compare it with. But one of these is off. Let me put the brown and sharp on there and see. Brown and sharp on the right, STARRETT on the left. They are together at the bottom, but as I go up, the gap gets wider and wider. Let me get the light in there. You know, that is probably 10 minutes off or so. Probably also within the tolerance of these squares, since they are not precision squares. But that's kind of surprising. I still haven't determined which one is the better one, or the more accurate, and probably never will. I probably shouldn't do this, but this is a Stanley piece of junk, a $2 square die cast, sold at the depot. Shame on you, Stanley. But let's see how it fares. And it's touching at the top. Not real good, but not as bad as you might think. But it is a carpenter square and certainly good for woodworking, and probably semi-good for some metalworking. Here's a Craftsman 6-inch square since I've had since I was 21. Not real bad, but it's a little bit off. This is the 4-inch knife edge mitutoyo. It's kind of wobbly. But using the flashlight, which is getting pretty dim on me, I have to change batteries right now. Okay, new energizers. I don't see any light at all. That looks really, really good. Let me put this up against the Chinese one. Question of the day. How can a square be round? I don't know, but it is. Mitutoyo, knife edge. We're sitting there on something, don't we? Oh, that's better. I guess I didn't have it all the way up against. Jordan. Okay, it's the STARRETT up against the Taft Pierce. And I see a little light coming through. Now let me finish off here with the Chinese one and see what happens, because that's really what it is all about, but I think I've confused the matter by showing so many different squares. Okay, this is the Chinese. And surprisingly enough, it's really quite good. It's amazing how close it is, comparing it at least to the Taft Pierce here, which has to be our standard, probably the most accurate thing that I've shown you here. Although it hasn't been calibrated or checked in 80 years. Hope you found this video at least somewhat interesting, and that now we know that even a relatively cheap tool can be fairly accurate. Put down your comments below. See what you think. This is Tubalcain saying so long for now.